the idea of marrying a woman just to have sex with her, that just boggles my mind. And a lot of my so-called non-practicing friends and non-Muslim friends, that boggle their mind. Whereas I'm having conversation with so-called religious people who have memorized the Quran or given khutbahs, some of them are imams, and they're justifying this. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
what about the risks, the STI risks to your wife? That's not in the Sharia. What does that mean? What about the emotional damage? What about the reputation of the Muslims if you engage in these practices and that comes public and that's seen as normalized? Oh well, that's not part of the conditions of a marital contract. We don't follow the West. We follow the Sharia, and it's just like it's a very simplistic and backward understanding of our Sharia as well. To think that that formulaic approach is something which is what Allah intended, and that's something that again I think we do a disservice to the religion when we speak about marriage like that. When something that someone who is a commoner, someone a layperson who hasn't studied will know that is wrong. But you're having so-called religious
Mm.
figures who are justifying it. That's what I find more. And they'll say things like, "Oh, in the West they're all promiscuous and they have side chicks and girlfriends." That's not true. Because even in the West, if you're in a relationship or you're married, and usually just say the man steps out, usually that's the end of the relationship. Obviously if the woman finds out. So to have
Yeah.
this idea that it's acceptable for a man to have multiple sexual partners or a woman to have multiple sexual partners, that's not the norm in the West. Like we have to be honest as well. Yes, they don't consider premarital sex to be impermissible, but that doesn't mean that they allow, like most people are comfortable with polygamy or open marriages. But if you are going to do it, there should be consent, obviously on both parts,
Yeah.
and there's transparency. Whereas the way a lot of Muslims are trying to preach these types of marital arrangements is that as long as the second woman's father knows, because he's the wali, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if my
Mm.
first wife knows. Do you understand? And that's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
it's to me that's wild, and that's why those views need to be challenged because they're losing a lot of people, especially again the last year or so. A number of these scandals have come to light, and people are really now questioning it.
Yeah.
And the people that are people of religious authority, they're oftentimes relying on the words and statements of our respected scholars of the past, rather than going back to like the Quran and what the Prophet peace be upon him saying about like morality and ethics and transparency. They're just always going back to and relying on the fiqh books.
Yeah.
And again, maybe because the environment I came about, like what is right, what is wrong, we don't try and justify it. I'll give you an example. So when I was in uni, this is a long, long time ago, one of my friends, obviously I'm Muslim, one of my friends who was then become quite militant, right?